Marvel Snap officially launches on October 18th, and there's already an extremely dedicated set of community members, as can be seen by the various Reddit threads and also on Twitch. However, in the short amount of time that Marvel Snap has been available in select regions, the game has been plagued by a couple of controversies, both in terms of some of the microtransaction systems offered, Nexus events, and also the unique way in which cards are obtained. At certain times, especially during the day in Europe, the Marvel Snap Twitch directory can be completely empty. At the same time, some of the top, most dedicated players who have completed their collections and already hit Infinity rank find little reason to play. They have no way to progress, and most of their opponents on the ladder are bots. In-game updates have crawled to a stop, as outside of the one card added per month in the season pass and one location added each week, updates seem non-existent. There have been no recent balance patches at the time of recording this video, and we don't know when the game is going to get significant new content. But all of that negativity comes with a few caveats. Firstly, the reason the content has slowed right down is because Second Dinner are trying to find a better, more user-friendly way of delivering the new content and monetizing the game. Something less predatory than the aforementioned Nexus events. Also, the reason that bots plague the ladder is because the game isn't out yet. It's probably a case of you play against a bot or you wait for 5 to 10 minutes on the upper end of the ladder to find a match. So that leads me nicely into the first thing that Marvel Snap needs in order to become successful on launch, and that is more players. This sounds obvious and is probably outside of the dev team's control, really, but it is important. Playing against bots all day when starting out is fine. In fact, it's pretty common practice that mobile games will pit you against bots at first while you're learning the mechanics so that you can win without the game having to find someone even newer than you when you're new. Real players tend to get mixed in eventually upon you reaching a certain rank or whatever that game's version of assigning your competence is. But after that point, bots should be gone. The bots at the top end of the ladder have got to go. Bots will make plays that make no sense whatsoever, whether that's playing wave on turn 3 into nothing on turn 4, rendering your leader play that made perfect sense a little bit silly, or a whole host of other things that make no sense. Also, whether or not they retreat is based on an algorithm, which means they can actually be farmed for cubes quite easily. Both of these things are problematic. Players shouldn't be able to farm bots for cubes at the highest ranks, nor should they have to put up with illogical plays that make no sense. Good players want to play good players because that's how they improve at the game. The bots really detract from the credibility of this game as a competitive game. And yes, I know Marvel Snap is a mobile game, but still it has every potential to be competitive. The bots have got to go. I realize that isn't the most constructive feedback. We need more players in the game. But again, it's important. I'd like to think that after the first few weeks or maybe the first month, as some new players do start to hit the maximum ranks and start to fill out their collection level, the bots should basically be phased out. I know as a fact that players in many cases would prefer to have to wait, 30 seconds to a minute for a game rather than have to play against a bot, but we'll just have to wait and see. On launch, Marvel Snap needs to get new players and it needs to hold on to them, which brings me to my next point. The second thing that needs to change in Marvel Snap is the meta. Marvel Snap is very different to other card games in how players accumulate their collection. This is controversial and I'll make a whole video on this in the future, but some people enjoy how they gather cards together, only play against people with similar collection sizes, but who definitely have different cards to them, and some people really hate it. What we can all agree is that once your collection is complete, the meta is pretty stale. At time of recording, there hasn't been a balance patch in a little bit of time. I think you're looking at a month or two, and the top of the meta is just Mr. Negative Sarah, and that's sort of been the case now for quite a long time. In fact, it's been the case for so long now that fan site Marvel Snap Zone has stopped doing frequent meta updates because there's little point. The meta isn't changing. The game has essentially been solved, and it's going to take a big shakeup to change that. One card each month and 4 locations each month are not going to cut it. The game will need a bigger shakeup like than that, whether that's a significant balance changes or a big old batch of cards added into the mix. Card games like Hearthstone, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pokemon, they have sets of cards, loads of cards being added to the game several times a year. We don't know if that's coming with Marvel Snap, but it feels like it's going to need something like that in order to keep people engaged for the long run. Now, the long run is important, but so is the short term, and getting players to stick around could be a problem. The next thing Marvel Snap needs to change, or at least improve upon slightly, is the new player experience. Currently, only the most dedicated players even make it to Pool 3. As while new players excitedly gather cards together and beat bots on the first day of playing, as soon as they realize, oh, this is going to be a bit of a grind fest, and you know, the card acquisition starts to slow down. Card acquisition goes from several a day to 2 a day to 1 a day to 1 every other day, etc. As players realize this, they might just dip out. Again, it's not like Hearthstone where you can spend essentially a couple dollars on a couple of packs and get 10 new cards. In Marvel Snap, you're getting your 1 card in the day and that's it. A lot of people have said on the subreddit as well that the enjoyment of the game over time has ebbed and flowed. Some days you'll open up a new card that you really love and you can make a load of cool decks with, and that's exciting and it gives you lots of content, it gives you loads of reason to play. And then on other days you'll get some trash that isn't even remotely interesting and you won't feel the motivation to play. Drax is a great example of a Pool 3 card that is just so boring. It's the mechanic that you've seen in Pool 1 and in the beginner set. It's not particularly powerful. You open that card, potentially as the first card you've opened in several days, and it's quite disheartening. Now, obviously, I enjoyed the new player experience enough, or I wouldn't still be playing, and I definitely wouldn't be making this video, but I do feel like it could be smoothed out slightly, where that card acquisition slows down at a smoother pace, so there isn't just a sudden, oh, you're done earning lots of cards, that's it. Then that could be good. And giving players more incentive to play. I think one of the biggest mistakes that Second Dinner made over the last couple months was when they added the, was it 200 boosts per day cap, which was later extended to 1,000, which is much more reasonable. But removing incentive for players to play the game is a no-go. You want to reward players somehow, even if that isn't by new cards. The fourth thing is an answer to the most controversial issue currently in Marvel Snap, which is no choice in what order you unlock your cards. This is a huge one, and it's one that I've spent quite a lot of time thinking about. I've had a few debates online with people because personally I can see the upside and the downside. The upside to card unlocks being done this way, where it's random, where you unlock cards in a different order to your friends, is that you get a unique gameplay experience. You can't just load up a guide and build the best deck straight away. You have to piece together the cards you've got like a puzzle and make something work out of them. And personally, as I was leveling up through Pool 1, Pool 2, and even Pool 3, I really enjoyed that. Every time I got a new card, I'd work out how I can jab it into a deck and actually do something effective with it. However, I can see the downside to this. Players that have come from Hearthstone or the other major card games, players who are used to being able to sort of open up all of the cards straight away, craft the card that they really want and get access to it immediately, they're not really digging this Marvel Snap system. Now again, I believe that there are enough cards in Marvel Snap Pool 3 that you can build decks around or put in decks so that almost every time you open a new card, you should be able to make something that works. However, there is an issue here. If you fail to open Sarah or Magic or Mr. Negative or Death or Mojo in sort of your first few cards in Pool 3, you are going to be drastically behind anyone that did get those cards because they are so powerful. Wong, Mystique, Venom, I feel like I'm missing some obvious ones here. Doctor Doom, you know, there are a lot of very powerful cards. If your first few unlocks in Pool 3 are Wasp, Drax, Black Bolt, and I don't know, Invisible Woman, you're going to be disappointed. And disappointment really is understating it. You're literally not going to be able to make a deck that can compete with what your opponents are doing. There has to be some sort of way around that. I don't know how far Second Dinner are going to be willing to push it because again, I think they're quite steadfast in their view that cards should be unlocked at random and that players shouldn't really have a choice because they want players to have a specific, unique experience.
I love the experience of just having a unique collection that nobody else had. And so with Marvel Snap, we really wanted to do the same thing. You don't get all the cards in Marvel Snap. You slowly earn the cards over time, and you also earn these cosmetic variants of the cards. And so my collection is going to look really different than your collection. Your cards look different. You might have different cards than me. You might be able to build different decks than I do. That's core to the experience of Marvel Snap.
However, I do think adding some sort of wild card unlock, whether that be in the season pass, towards the end of the season pass, every month you get to choose a card in your current pool to unlock, or whether that is a paid thing, I don't know. But currently even the whales are suffering, because if they get to pool 3 and say they specifically want Death to make a Death Deadpool deck, and they want Death and Deadpool, for all they know, Death's going to be the last pool 3 card they get, and it's going to cost them hundreds of dollars to get there. And I don't think that's really fair for anyone. Having to pay hundreds of dollars to unlock one specific card, probably not the direction they want to really be taking the game in. That's going to put a lot of players off. The final thing that Marvel Snap need to change, at least in my opinion, is they need to add a clear direction for the future of the game. Notice I didn't mention gameplay in any of these points so far. I think Marvel Snap's gameplay is actually just fantastic. They've really nailed something. They've managed to take Hearthstone and artifacts formulas and sort of merge them in a really simple way while maintaining a lot of the depth. Games are fast-paced and fun, and it's easy to get lost in them. However, as an amalgamation of all of my points so far, Marvel Snap's future is really questionable at this point. Now, Second Dinner have alluded to other game modes, as well as a special competitive game mode that they're going to talk about more soon, and that is exciting stuff. If you think back to Hearthstone when it came back, Hearthstone had Constructed and it had Arena. Arena was a totally different experience, and a lot of players never actually touched Constructed and only played Arena. These side game modes can make a big difference. Hearthstone Battlegrounds is another great example. It's a completely different game to Hearthstone Constructed, and it has a very huge fan base in its own right. If Marvel Snap can develop a similar side game formula like Hearthstone, there's a lot of potential there. Honestly, there's a lot of potential with Marvel Snap in general. One of the biggest IPs in the world in Marvel, one of the best development teams in the world, as in the guys that originally made Hearthstone. And it's a mobile first game, which you might laugh at or scoff at, but mobile games are ruling the world. Supercell have really been leading the charge there, but games like PUBG Mobile, Apex Mobile, etc., these are becoming big esports in their own right, and there's no reason Marvel Snap couldn't do the same thing. If Marvel Snap makes the right moves, we could be looking at the next big thing, and I sure hope it does.